everyone! So when we left off at the end of our last video, we were in Milford Haven, having just waited out a lot of pretty bad weather. After that weather passed and it started to improve again, our next step was to do a passage up from Milford Haven to Fishguard. And this was a passage that we were a little bit nervous about, and to show you why, I thought I would show you on the charts. So we started the passage from Dale, which is in here, and then to get up to Fishguard we had to come out of the haven, come up here, and then first go through Jack Sound, which is this stretch of water in between the mainland and Skomer Island over here. And the reason this is a little bit scary is because you have some quite fast tidal races going through Jack Sound. Once you've done that, you cross the bay up here, and then you have another quite scary sound to go through, which is in between the mainland and Ramsey Island. So this is Ramsey Sound. And similarly you have some quite fast tidal races passing through here. Then you carry on further up and you go around St David's Head here, and then you go around Strumble Head up here and into Fishguard. So quite a lot going on this passage. When you're on your way up, slack tide at Ramsey Sound is about an hour after slack tide at Jack Sound, so that means you can actually go through both sounds at slack water, so that makes the passage planning a little bit easier. So after our previous experience of running low on water, which was not a very pleasant one, we made sure to stock up well this time, and luckily in Dale they do have a drinking water tap where you can refill containers, so that was very useful. We kept all of the empty plastic bottles that we had bought before and refilled those. When we were due to set out, we were quite nervous because some fog had descended, and normally we would never consider setting out into fog, especially being relatively inexperienced. However, we were going with James and his daughter Chloe, and James had checked the forecast and he was quite confident that the fog was sort of localised and that it would disperse as we got further along. So we took his word for it on that and we set out. I really did not enjoy the experience of going through the fog, I have to say. It just made me extremely anxious for some reason. Well, probably for quite obvious reasons. It wasn't so bad that you couldn't see the other boats, but it just felt disconcerting to have our visibility limited in that way. I remember as we were passing the lighthouse you could actually hear the foghorn going off, which was just a little bit creepy. The only nice thing about that stretch of the passage was that as we were passing Scotcombe Island, which is before Skomer, there were tons of puffins in the water, and other birds, but mostly puffins. They're so tiny I didn't really get particularly good footage, but I do have one photo that I can zoom in on. And this was just very exciting to me because I had never seen a puffin in the wild before, and I just think they're really cute. So the fog must have lasted at least an hour, and we were starting to worry that it wasn't going to clear before we got to Jack Sound, which is not an area that you would want to navigate with poor visibility. But luckily, just as we were approaching the sound, right on cue, it did start to clear. Through the sound without any problems. James and Chloe had waited on the other side for us just to check that we were okay, and as they passed us they got some footage of us and we got some of them as well. So from Jack Sound it took us about an hour to then get to Ramsey Sound. Passing through Ramsey Sound, actually I really enjoyed, surprisingly, even though it seemed like it was going to be quite nerve-wracking. It was a very calm day, so the conditions in there weren't too scary, although Nick, who was on the helm, did say that he felt like he was being tugged around a little bit, but nothing too terrifying, and the landscapes were really stunning. It was just really cool to be able to look up at the island on one side and then the coast of the mainland on the other side with the lifeboat station and everything. So then we just had to pass around St David's Head and Strumble Head. Strumble Head has quite a distinctive lighthouse, and it also has some pretty fast currents running around there, and we actually got up to about 9 knots going around there, which is pretty unheard of for Andante normally. As the name suggests, she's not usually the fastest boat. As we were coming towards Fishguard harbour, we actually saw the biggest dolphins we've ever seen. We very often see dolphins, but never this kind. I didn't get particularly good footage, but I ended up spending quite a long time researching when we got there, trying to figure out exactly what we had seen, and I came to the conclusion that the dolphins we've seen in the past were common dolphins, which are significantly smaller, whereas these were bottlenose dolphins, I think. If you know anything about dolphins, please feel free to leave a comment and tell me if I got it right or not. Once we were in Fishguard, we decided to pick up a visitor mooring. The moorings were in very shallow water, so we ended up lifting up the keel just to make sure that we wouldn't do any damage if we did touch the bottom.
I think we're going to touch bottom in the night.
That's what she said.
So we're just winding the keel in to be safe.
Then we had a well-deserved dinner. We had initially chosen the mooring that was furthest in just because it was the only one that was available. After a while the one behind us became available, so we decided to move to that one instead, where the water was a little bit less shallow. And Nick very cunningly managed to do that without actually turning the engine on. He just got in the dinghy and went over there with a line, and I'm not even sure exactly what he did, but magically we were on the other mooring instead, which was good. stayed in Fishguard for 2 nights, and honestly it was my favourite place that we have been so far. There was just something really magical about it. Partly it was probably just because the weather was so good, really hot and sunny. I did have some work to do while we were there, and while I was doing that, Nick entertained himself by trying to wash some of his clothes in a bucket. We were both running pretty low on clean laundry at this point.
We went all out and got a washing machine. I think probably £1.50 if you bought one now.
But apart from that, we mostly just spent a lot of time exploring. We did a little bit of provisioning. We also just spent a lot of time rowing around the harbour. It was just so beautiful. It was just nice just to be there, really. With it being so hot, Nick ventured into the water. I didn't quite. I dipped my toes in, but the water was pretty freezing cold even though it was so hot.
Here we are in Fishguard. We've got the good ship Dan, or Andante if we took the fenders away. Keel's fully in. We're on one of the visitor moorings here. And the visitor moorings actually dry on springs. We're not going to lose all of the water today, but we are just about touching bottom. That's the first time, a test of the keel coming up and whatever. So I think the boat's just drifted around in slightly deeper water now, but we've got another 20 centimetres left in the tide, so it should bottom out and then we should see the water go down a bit. So that's our first time and we're really excited actually. And something else to note, we have this sort of like copper coat like system on the boat, which has been there since she was made. It's moulded into the hull. We took a bit of a gamble. This year we didn't anti-foul over it. We anti-fouled the keel because that's a cast iron plate and the system been lost from that. It's holding up really well. No real slime on there, no barnacles growing. And then to put that into contrast, the bottom of the dinghy had millions and millions of, well, it seemed like millions of tiny little barnacles growing on it. Just in the space of a couple of days they've appeared. So haven't done anything to this and it's fine. A little bit of slime at the waterline, but that came off really easily as well. So actually we think it might be working out quite well.
It was really nice to know that our keel is working as intended after we got it moving again in the yard, and you definitely can feel the difference when the boat touches the bottom. I remember waking up and just feeling the difference in motion compared to when you're floating. After a couple of days we unfortunately did need to head back down towards Milford Haven because we had some other commitments and also the weather was changing for the worse. But we didn't go all the way back in one go. We decided to stop in at Abereiddi, which is quite famous for a landmark called the Blue Lagoon, which is basically a disused quarry that has been filled with water and it has this unique deep blue colour. We had what was probably the calmest passage we've ever had. I don't think I've ever seen such flat water out at sea. arrived it was actually quite difficult to see the entrance. It's very much tucked away in the cliffs. We got in and put down the anchor and then went for a look at the Blue Lagoon. We only stayed in Abereiddi for a night because we just needed to get back, and on the passage back the tides are significantly more challenging because you can go through Ramsey Sound at slack water, but then obviously that means the tide will be in full flow by the time you get to Jack Sound. It was a very calm day, so most likely we would have been okay to go through Jack Sound with a bit of tide flowing, but we decided to play it safe and also get a little bit of variety by going around the outside of Skomer Island. And so that meant that we went through Broad Sound, which is the stretch of water in between Stockholm and Skomer, and then we were safely back in Dale. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Next time we will be having a go at entering an unfamiliar marina and then slowly making our way back towards our home port. This hopefully will not be all the sailing we do this season, but we just needed to go back home for a little bit. So if you did like this video, please do like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Click the little bell if you want to get notifications, and we will see you next time.